You're watching KLTX, Channel 15, serving the city of Lufkin.
Today on Screen It or Stream It,
he who laughs last laughs hardest.
Or thinks slowest.
Wait, what?
Joker is rated R for strong bloody violence, disturbing behavior, which I didn't know that could get you an R rating, but apparently it can, and some brief sexual imagery.
It's the story of Arthur Fleck, who is a down-on-his-luck clown with some mental issues who,
just a few,
throughout the entire movie, basically gets beaten down by society and then oftentimes literally beaten down
a couple times
by society. And we get to kind of follow him down this path as he spirals into madness and lashes out with extreme violence.
Yeah, it was pretty extreme. Of course, it's based on the Batman villain Joker, obviously. What do we think about this one?
So we got together and decided this was a good movie.
Alright, so I was actually really surprised because everybody told me how violent it was, and I must have been desensitized because I was expecting more, though the violence there was disturbing, so...
Yeah, I don't think you're really desensitized. I think it was just... There's not as much violence in this as an Avengers movie or pretty much any other like superhero movie. I think it's the level he takes the violence to, the personal level, and like it is very graphic.
Oh yeah.
When the violence happens, it's super graphic, and he's not remorseful. There's no I'm sad for what I did, or and a lot of it there's just like, I don't want to say there's no reason behind it, but he
always has a reason.
Yeah, he always has some kind of reason. But when the violence happens, it is very sudden, it is very graphic, it is very bloody. It's not a movie that is just filled with violence all the way throughout.
Right.
And it's a different kind of violence, and I think that the people that it's bothering, I think that's why it's bothering them. Superman can wreck an entire city, which probably killed millions of people, and we're all right because you don't see the people actually die. But in Joker, it's very up close and it's in your face and it's very personal, and I think that bothers people.
Yeah, I could see that.
It doesn't, though. Most of the violence in the first 2/3, at least, of the show is violence against him.
Yeah.
He gets beaten up by thugs and picked on, and
couple of those, I sure I could have felt myself taking those hits from like the sign and stuff. It was brutal.
And so I've heard some people say it was slow and they didn't care for the pacing. But again, I think when we walked out of the theater and I walked outside for the first time in a very long time, it felt like we had been to the cinema.
A proper movie had been seen.
We saw a proper movie, not necessarily we went to the movies and it's a fancy TV show or whatever. It was a proper movie. There was character development. It made you feel. I sometimes I'm not sure what I was feeling, and it made you feel multiple things.
Right.
But it made you feel. When it starts, you can't help but feel sorry for Arthur. And before he becomes the Joker, there's no reason to not feel sorry for him. He's just literally he's got something wrong with him. He's a little bit off. One of the things, part of his mental condition, is the laughter.
Yeah.
Which is creepy as all get out, by the way.
Yeah, apparently he practiced for months to get that laugh just so.
But that gets him ridiculed, and it gets him in a lot of trouble when it's not his fault and there's nothing really he can do about it.
Yeah.
And just watching him be ridiculed, made fun of, beaten on, picked on for just trying to go about his day-to-day business. A lot of the violence against him was because, oh, you're a clown. Well, he was being a clown because he wanted to make people happy and he wanted to make people laugh, and he gets beat up for it.
Yeah, which the clown thing was kind of, I guess to me it felt like the best gig he could get while he was trying to become a stand-up comedian. That was kind of his ultimate goal. And they had like the open mic night, which you've seen people who want to be the aspiring singers that do karaoke night. It's kind of a similar thing to me, but which I've seen a whole movie about that, which was strange. But anyway, we don't need to go down that rabbit trail.
Which I did think it was great because at the end, when he does have his break and he becomes, Joker.
Yeah, he just embraces that full on.
Well, and there is a scene in the movie where he says, and I can't remember the exact verbiage, but he basically says, "Oh, wow, I've spent my entire life trying to make other people happy." That has always been his goal.
Yeah.
And he's terrible at it. He's a bad clown. He's a bad comedian. But he just wants to make people happy, and he spent his entire life doing it. And all he's ever gotten for it is crap. And that's when he has the break, is when he comes to that realization, nothing I can ever do is going to make other people happy. And then he just wants to, well, screw it then. I'm going to be this crazy Joker guy and do what I want to do. And I thought that was a great transition to him being the Joker. And, the Joker in the mythos doesn't care about anything. He is legitimately crazy. And, well, why would he be crazy? Well, you get to see him build to that.
It's all for a laugh, which he may be the only one laughing, but, that's okay.
That being said, also, though, to me, this feels like an alternate universe or an other world. This does not fit with, I think Heath Ledger's Joker is maybe my favorite Joker of all time, but I love the Jack Nicholson Joker, even the old Cesar Romero from the 60s, Batman show Joker, not the Jared Leto one. But then, but I really like this version of Joker, but it does not fit into my vision or my understanding of the DC universe. I can't see this Joker being in the Justice League movie or the Wonder Woman movie. And I know a lot of people are doing things to try to say, oh, here's how it fits, but he just doesn't, because he doesn't seem to be the stereotypical portrayal of the Joker that I am used to and that I want to be there.
Sure.
He's not particularly intelligent. He's not calculating, and it's not one of those things I don't think you can just, you can do anything you want to when you're writing the story, but I don't think he's just going to wake up and be smarter because he's the Joker. And that was one of the Joker's superpowers, was his ability to plan and think through and trick people and pull off this stuff. And he has some of his own, people will follow him, people latched onto him at the end.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just don't see him being...
He did have a decent investigative ability, which that was kind of interesting too. It was kind of a side quest in the movie where he's tracking down this stuff and playing detective,
But he just felt almost slow. He was a little slow on the uptake on a lot of things.
Now, he was on a bunch of medications, too.
Well, so maybe that was...
They mentioned that, and which, I know once you kind of dry out of that stuff, it totally changes some people's personalities. So.
Okay, well, that was a great thing from this movie also, was not only did we get to follow his kind of bullying and persecution, but there was a whole bunch of, I don't want to say socialist, but, studying of society and the way people are treated, and there's a lot of, class warfare going on here. And one of the things is, he is a person with some kind of mental disability. He also does not have a lot of money, and so he's living in a crappy apartment with his mom. He's just barely making ends meet, and he goes to the I don't even know what it was called, but it was basically his psychiatrist that was government funded,
right?
And we're going to shut down. You don't get any more money, and he has a moment where he's like, well, where do I get my medication from that really seems to help me?
Yeah.
And they never answer that question.
No,
it just kind of cuts away. But it kind of shows he was poor, and then, oh, well, you're poor and forgotten, basically. And I think part of his, delve into madness was also that he didn't have his medication. He didn't have his support that he needed and should have had because of his standing in society. And I do think it was a little extreme. And there was kind of this overall, bigger overreaching thing in the movie about Thomas Wayne being wanting to be mayor of Gotham, and he was kind of a representative of the haves,
right?
And then almost every other person in the movie was the have-nots.
Just about
that we get to see. There were some people that picked on Arthur earlier that were well-to-do, but they were also they worked for Thomas Wayne. But we kind of, there's the people, and you've seen it in the trailers with all the Joker mask and everything else, and they're latching on to him because they feel unrepresented. They feel like the rich people are taking advantage of them, and they're just suffering to advance the rich people. And I thought Thomas Wayne. Combine the two. I thought Thomas Wayne was great because the statements he made, the words he used, he was trying to tell people, I'm going to help you, but at the same time, it didn't actually sound like he wanted to help people because it was a good thing to do. He sounded like, well, I'm better than all of you. So if you let me be in charge, my betterness will allow me to help you. And that just added fuel to the fire, and I thought that was great.
It was, I just hats off to the writer for that one, because they picked his words so perfectly to, like, if you were in context where you could understand from his point of view what he's saying, it makes perfect sense. He's trying to help people. But the same, on the other side of that, the other people, like you said, they hear it as like, well, they're just being talked down to by this guy who has no idea, and it was just perfectly done. So, way to walk that line.
And one thing we have to talk about is Joaquin Phoenix. So I have never been a fan of Joaquin Phoenix. I have liked some of the movies and some of the things he's been in, but I don't know. There's something about him that just, like, I don't know him as a person, but
sure.
There's something about him, seeing his characters and stuff. I just never liked him from the moment I saw him, and I don't know what it is. It's something about his appearance or something else, and he tends to play a lot of jerky characters. And when I saw him be the Joker, I was like, well, I don't know. Like, it just doesn't seem like a good fit. But his performance, I think, goes a long way into making you feel. And not just his performance, but his physical appearance. He lost, I forget, you said what, like 50
52 pounds or something. Yeah, it was.
He's very emaciated, he gets beaten, and they show all the bruising and stuff, so you get to see, the damage he takes, and he looks so beaten and so twisted and almost monstrous at points because of his emaciation and his bruising and the discoloration and the scars and like that makes you feel for him. And then how you can take this guy that laughs at everything and is a little bit off and a little bit crazy and also make you feel for him, and he just kind of becomes the character, which I think is the greatest compliment you can give somebody. He just becomes the character. You believe it, you tie into it. And a lot of people said that there would be no Oscar talk or anything like that because the critics kind of panned it at first. They seem to be coming around, but they didn't want to glorify the violence that is the movie, so they didn't want to give him the credit. But dear Lord God, someone give that man an award somewhere, something for that. That was one of the most amazing. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio is like, stop trying to kill yourself, man. They will give you an award somewhere. But I kind of felt the same thing here watching him.
Yeah, I was really worried, especially as they kept making you feel for him, that it was going to turn into one of those things like Dexter comes to mind. Which I did enjoy Dexter, but what I didn't like about Dexter was they're putting him out as this hero figure. And I was afraid they were going to do that with Joker, that they were somehow going to make us like, no, see, he's just misunderstood. He's actually all right. But they didn't. And that was kind of disturbing and awesome at the same time, that they were able to make you feel for him so much, and still, when he went full off the rails, you're like, that's not right.
Well, and the funny thing is, even when he goes off the rails and he becomes Joker, I still understand why he does everything he does.
Absolutely. I see why he does it. It makes sense because you've been seeing it from his perspective. But it's neat that it didn't make me feel like I should think he's wrong, or I should think he's right. Even though I understand it, I still think he's wrong. So,
yeah,
I guess
the situation could have been handled better.
Right. There are better ways to do this. Oh, so much violence.
And I didn't think at the end that they didn't try to portray him as a hero.
No, right. Even though he had that kind of heroic moment standing there with the masses, I did not feel like they were putting him out as a hero. even though they did the pose, it still felt the offbeat, which was perfect for what they were doing.
And I remember before the movie ever came out, you had said you were worried about them, like how are they going to pull this off where he's supposed to be a villain.
Right.
How do you tell an entire story that's 2 hours, whatever it is long, about one guy, actually invest in that guy, and then still have him come out to be the villain? And I think they did a great job at that.
Nailed it. I've never seen it done better, I don't think.
And like I said, I don't feel like
okay, I don't think I've ever seen it done better.
I don't think he fits in the DC universe that we have right now. Does not mean I don't want to see him in the DC universe.
Right.
I just don't see how he would interact with superpowered beings and be holding his own in the least little bit.
I felt like he most closely relates to the Heath Ledger Joker. Like, it could have been a backstory almost for that one, and then give him a couple of years to hone his craft, as it were, and then he comes out full Heath Ledger crazy. And
well, it's funny you said that because, like,
wanna see a magic trick?
One of the things I loved about the Heath Ledger Joker was, like, the story of the scars. Every time
it changed.
It changed because you weren't supposed to know anything about him. He's supposed to be mysterious. And when they said, well, we're doing a Joker origin story, well, then you're taking away that mystery.
Yeah,
and there's
we like the mystery.
The mystery, the tease is part of the enjoyment of it. But I'm okay with this because it does not feel like it fits into, like, he's the Arthur Fleck version of the Joker,
right?
But I don't feel like he's the Joker. And honestly, if this was just a movie about a serial killer that was, I mean, if this could have been a documentary about some guy that really lived. There are no superpowers, and they don't even mention, like, I mean, there's Thomas Wayne, we see little Bruce Wayne, so like they do some things to like tie him into to DC, but there's no mention of, like the Marvel TV shows that would mention the fact that New York nearly got destroyed or what. There's none of that. There's no mention of superpowers. We don't see superpowered anything. They're just kind of normal people. And it's kind of down low on the normal level. We're on the streets with them. That's something else I thought was really good. I thought the set design, the cinematography, the music, like everything did a really good job of coming together and making a wonderful story to behold. And it had a great arc to it too, because you watch him suffer, and then you watch him delve into madness, and then he doesn't just, and he does kind of snap at the end, and when he goes full Joker, but we start getting like inklings, and he starts like,
the hints grow.
Yeah, he's doing more stuff, and like we're about to get him. Which again, like I said, I had talked to some people, and that was one of the things they didn't like about this was if you go in expecting Thor Ragnarok, you're gonna be, really disappointed in what you get.
Yeah.
If you're expecting flashy, bang bang stuff blowing up, that's not what you get. You get a cerebral movie that tells a story that is a character-driven piece. And this is one of the reasons. So, like, I've always been a fan of DC, and with the prevalence of Marvel and how great a job, honestly, they've done with the Marvel Universe, almost anybody you talk to now that's, new, I don't know how to put that without sounding very hipster. You have to borrow the glasses here in a second, but I talk to teenagers all day long, and they're all Marvel is the greatest. And they say, well, DC sucks. And I'm like, well, what have you read DC? Well, I don't read it. I'm saying the movies, and Marvel's movies are better. But one of the things I like about DC is I like the grittiness, the realness, the darkness, and that's going to actually kind of contradict some stuff I've said before, but I like those characters. Batman should be dark and gritty. The Joker should be dark and gritty. Like, I like that. Superman should not be dark and gritty.
Right.
But to me, Marvel doesn't do the dark and gritty as well as DC does.
Yet.
And I really like the fact that this needed to be an R-rated movie to me. It did not.
Yep.
Even though it's a superhero movie, and it's not a superhero movie, it's about the farthest thing from a superhero movie. But even though it's a comic book movie, it's based on a comic book property. It doesn't act like and in fact, it's not even that closely based on a comic book property. And again, it could have been a story about a serial killer that you just it could have been a real life thing.
But it does fit pass, I should say, the Megamind litmus test for a supervillain. Presentation.
Hey, he doesn't monologue. In fact, he's not a very good orator. He doesn't speak that well.
He tries, but then when it's time for action, no monologuing.
No.
It's action time.
And I like that. Like, I enjoyed that he's just kind of straightforward and he's to the point, and again, in a horrible way, but
yeah.
But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the different take. I didn't feel like I was watching the same thing again, which also makes it feel like it doesn't fit into the universe.
Sure.
It's hard to not be spoilery with stuff,
right,
because a lot of stuff we talk about.
Because we've talked around everything. Do you have any final thoughts before we go on our streaming options?
No, I don't guess so.
I guess we did forget to mention his mom also had mental health issues, so it kind of ran in the family somewhat. But I don't know that that's really worth getting into too much, because we'll be another 20 minutes and we don't have time. All right, so do you have a streaming option in mind?
I do, okay. And so based on the it's too violent, it's too violent, it's too violent, I'm going to mention it's too violent, it's too violent, too violent, and it's A Clockwork Orange.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And again, it's kind of funny because it came out in the 70s, and like it was banned in different countries and censored and everything else because it was so violent. And really, if you watch it by today's standards, it's not really that violent. But again, it's violent, but it's not ban it from the country violent.
Yeah, we've been desensitized just as a society at this point.
But the thing it does, again, is the violence is so personal and there's no remorse, and I think that bothers people more than the sheer volume of violence that happens. And A Clockwork Orange is one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's a story of a guy, not necessarily his delve into madness, because he's pretty much in madness when it starts.
Yeah.
And it's about society trying to reform him and fix him, but they go about it a completely wrong way. And he ends up just as bad or in the same spot that he started off with. But it has some of those. Malcolm McDowell does a great job, I thought, as playing Alex, who's the ringleader, the head droog, and it has a lot of those like moments of the old ultra violence, and it's also kind of off, and it kind of makes you feel weird, and you're like, what am I watching here? This is kind of bad, and like it gives me a lot of the same feels. I thought some of the performances were really good. And I mean, it was 70s, so a lot of stuff is kind of dated, and it doesn't, translate well. And I think the violence will put some people off, just because it is graphic when it happens.
Yeah.
And but I love, again, the whole psychological aspect of them, and it's about free will. And so in the show, they strap him down to a chair and they show him a whole bunch of like violent movies, and they give him like medicine to make him sick, to try to train him to be sick when he sees violence. Well, they didn't fix the mental disorder that's causing the violence. They just put a roadblock in the way of the violence, which basically cripples him from being a human being.
Right, because then he's unable to survive in this violent world.
Which is a kind of an interesting commentary on humanity. When you can't be a jerk, then you don't get to survive in our world anymore. It's Stanley Kubrick, who I enjoy a lot of the stuff he does. I think it's a great piece of filmmaking. It's definitely not from everybody. I completely understand that. Like I said, the violence, the graphic nature of a lot of things. If you do like it or interested in it, it's based on a book, and I enjoyed the book too. The book is more graphic and more violent and more disturbing than the movie is, as they usually are. But I thought it was great too. I would suggest, if you want to do that, watch the movie first, because they use that weird Russian English slang language that is very hard to understand when you read it. Not so bad after you've seen it in the movie.
Oh my. Yeah, the movie was easy enough to follow. I haven't tried the book though. I'm actually drawn to the Shyamalan trilogy with his little superhero trio. Split and Unbreakable. And I think I'm gonna go with Split, because it is about the villain, and essentially the creation of a villain and it's about a guy, and I forget the main guy's name. They said it like so many times, Wallace or Walter or something, I don't remember. Crumb. Anyway, not important. What is important is he had not multiple personalities, but it was something like that, and I don't remember I'm not sure it's even a real condition, but he would actually take on all of the characteristics of each personality when they were in the light, which is when they were in control. And so he would just be this other person, whether it was a woman or whatever, and James McAvoy should have gotten an award for that if he didn't.
Oh, he did an amazing job at that.
You could just tell by his posture that he had become someone completely different.
The way he walked.
You could tell who he had become before he said a word, and it was really fantastic bit of acting. So they've got that in common too.
On the same note, Doom Patrol, there's Crazy Jane in Doom Patrol does the same thing.
I'm going to have to watch that one.
You have to. But at some point they actually go into her like subconscious, and you see all the individual like characters interacting with each other and arguing over whose turn it is to be the one. Is great. But
well, anyway, Split also comes back around to that he's got the psychiatrist trying to help him, and of course things go sideways because how could you have a supervillain story if it didn't? But the big kind of focus on that one is they keep talking about the beast that's coming, and that's going to be the big villain. And the rest of them, I think they were called the Horde. And it was just this group and some of them were really sweet and nice, and some of them were really horrible, but I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for watching Screen It or Stream It.
Remember, don't take your kids to the movies on Tuesday nights because that's when we go.